Just as a reminder, you can visit us at thoughtsexpanded.com. That's thoughtsexpanded.com to sign up for our amazing Patreon exclusives, listen directly, and share our latest episodes with your family and friends. Thanks for listening.
The year is 2025. Donald Trump is president. Elon Musk just did the Nazi salute in the Capital One Arena. Aliens are landing eggs on planet Earth. CEOs are scared of people on the street. This is the cyberpunk dystopia we are currently living in. Welcome to season 4 of Thoughts Expanded. So this is the first episode of season 4. I am your host, Jeff, with my co-host, Jacob.
Hey there.
And Wiggy.
Oh, friends.
And we are just talking about the insane number of things that have happened in the 2 months that we've been off. We recorded our last episode in November. Since then, let's see, Trump has been elected.
Well, I mean, we recorded it after that for sure.
True. Yeah, we had a couple episodes after Trump was elected. What else happened? Some dude named Luigi killed a CEO of a healthcare company and left a little scathing manifesto. There were several terrorist attacks, one in New Orleans, one in Las Vegas, maybe one in New York, although that one's not super clear to me yet. There have been insane numbers of drones over New Jersey and the eastern United States and the western United States. What else, boys? What else has been going on?
TikTok ban.
TikTok ban.
Big one.
Yep. TikTok was banned for a whole 12 hours. My God. People lost their shit.
It was a rough 12 hours, let me tell you. Although I want to say before we start getting into things, you literally said Elon Musk, and I think that's funny.
Did I say Elvin?
No, you said Ellen. Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's funny considering Trump just told the government that there was only going to be 2 genders.
Yeah, that literally happened.
Inside of the government, right? Inside of the government, there's only 2 genders. Outside of the government, there can be as many genders as we want, right? But inside the government, there can only be 2.
Right, and that's because they've implemented those new laser realignment door frames in every government building. As soon as you walk through, you are just one gender.
No, you're 2
it's
genders
like severance
at once.
No, you have to pick one. Yeah.
Oh wait, I thought you said there was 2 inside the government.
It doesn't matter which one you are.
You have to be exactly
you just have
one
one
of 2.
One of 2. I see.
Yeah, one of 2.
Do they assign it to you at the door? How does this work? Is it just based on what you're wearing at the time?
Well, it said that you would be able to select via drop down. So
like
I'm assuming that it's our choice what we go as. But he also said not based on identified. So I don't know exactly. My guess is that they flip a coin. So every time somebody comes in, they flip a coin, and that's just what they are.
Okay, that's fair. It'll be fun to experience both genders.
Yeah.
I hope that does happen.
I love experimenting the other gender.
Yeah,
so
it would be fun.
Yeah,
it's fun. For the first time in my life, I am looking forward to going to the DMV just to see what happens. I don't even know.
Yeah, we'll never know.
Yeah,
or we will. let's see.
Yeah, and I think that is a huge theme of what's going on with the right now. Is it seems like they are very, very intent on erasing the trans community completely from the U.S. Like that seems like a pretty important agenda that they're pushing right now. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, I think they are still a lot of mostly rhetoric and not really organized to do anything, en masse. Like it doesn't really seem like their groups. I mean, obviously, like there's like the Proud Boys and stuff like that sometimes like do stuff, I suppose, in reality. But other than that, it seems like a lot of posting online. So, I don't think they will be successful at eradicating and enforcing their gender politics like on the internet. Like that seems impossible at this point.
Sure.
But and that seems like their main goal is to like make it so that the internet is one way.
I don't know. This feels like a shift in direction in that, though. Like declaring that within government property, they will only be recognizing two genders. That is like a physical, real world manifestation of the internet policies that have been going around, of the rhetoric.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, but I guess who's going to actually enforce that? How are they going to verify these places are not just going to do their own thing, which is usually how that works when the government doesn't want to do something the president says. I don't know. It seems to me like not that I guess I would have to see what it actually does before I know.
Yeah. I mean, I guess time will tell. Yeah.
It seems like Trump wants to go for anything cheap that will make him look good.
Right.
Right. And to me, it's like making a statement is certainly something that's free, especially if you can like just make it seem like it's an actual policy that will do something your supporters want, and not just like an idea off the top of his head.
Yeah. The TikTok thing, I think, is really blatantly obvious. I feel like you should really be the one telling the story of the TikTok thing, 'cause TikTok's kind of your realm.
Yeah, so so essentially what's going on is, and it's pretty obvious if you're paying attention. Depends on how much you're paying attention. So essentially what's happening is there's one specific. Hold on, let's talk about the actual legislation first, okay? Let's talk about the legislation.
It was originally introduced in 2020 by Trump, correct?
No, I'm not sure.
Yeah, from what I've read and what I've understand, this was a policy that was originally enacted in 2020 and is just now really being carried out.
Yeah, so it wasn't a standalone bill. It was tied to
bundled in with like a
relief funding.
Yeah.
And so the narrative on mainstream media has been that there was wide across the aisle agreement that this was a bad thing. And that's not the case. It was a supplemental earmark to a bill that was for relief. Essentially money for Ukraine and Israel and wherever else we're doing relief efforts, right? Like, so it wasn't its own thing where both sides of the aisle were like, yeah, we got to ban TikTok. That wasn't what was going on. And the person, Cotton, Representative Cotton, but I don't know how wider you can get. But he's the one who put it up, and he actually has a book coming out about removing the Chinese influence from our nation. And so there's also that part. There's also the TikTok has possibly the best algorithm that's ever been created for social media, and other companies cannot keep up. They've been trying to replicate it. They've not been able to do so. And so there's the whole, government is in league with our tech industry to make sure that one of our tech companies is able to get a hold of the algorithm. And there is also, I do believe that Republicans are concerned that there is that there is a way to use the platform for propaganda, but I think they recognize it as it's great for propaganda, and so they want to use it for propaganda. So if it's controlled by a U.S. company, it's not a subsidiary to a company that's based out of the Cayman Islands. They'll have control over the narratives just like they do with all of the other platforms. And so I think it's one of those where it's the only place where people get to actually talk to each other without and sharing information without the government stepping in and saying like this is not okay to say or this is okay to say. And that's not okay for them because there's been lots of strife between the people and the government ever since COVID, and ever since George Floyd and everything else when things just start getting lit up. And so they can't allow there to be a place that is not controlled by them.
And
And
it seems
so
like they
that's
successfully worked their way around it now too. Like
Yeah.
that feels like what the announcements that were posted after the ban ended were signaling to.
So what's
You
the
know, the
workaround?
What do you mean? What's that?
Like what?
So
How do they work around it?
yeah,
Well,
so
they're just working with TikTok directly and be like, "Hey, you're gonna be our state-run media. Like, we're gonna just put out announcements through you." That's how it feels like it's gonna work now. Like, yeah,
I haven't seen any of that. I would say that so Biden said that for the rest of his term, which was 48 hours or whatever it was, that he wasn't. So it's the executive branch's job, the attorney general, to actually go after the companies for breaking the laws. And Biden pretty much said like, no, we're not going to go after TikTok. We're not going to go after any of the companies that are providing them infrastructure. We're not going to do any of that while I'm still in office. And then Trump came out and said, we're not going to do that either. I'm going to make an executive order extending them another 90 days. He can't reverse the ruling because it's law. But what he can do is just not enforce the law. So I think that even Trump still wants it to be sold to an American only company without it being a subsidiary of another company. And it kind of seems there are some conspiracy theories that other tech companies already kind of have their negotiations going on, and so they're just kind of giving them more time to settle everything out until it eventually happens. We'll have to see. That's essentially what you need to know about the TikTok ban.
well, it lasted for 12 hours, where it was down. I would be really interested to see the economic effects of that 12 hours. I think that would be very interesting because there's a lot of business going on TikTok.
That's true.
It was overnight U.S. time. It was overnight, so probably not as much as had it been during like a Saturday,
Right.
or something like that. But
Yeah.
there's
Not
sure
as much, but
some-
almost certainly it had some. I
Almost
mean, it
certainly.
definitely affected the wallets of some people.
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
for sure.
So
For sure. And a lot of it, like the last 12 hours of TikTok was mostly people just complaining about how, like, yes, it's going to severely impact their businesses, but it was really people just saying like, I'm going to miss the communities I built.
yeah.
And I think that's the right attitude to take with this is that was what we were able to do. People were able to create communities. And we can't really do that anywhere else. I mean, you can, but I mean, half of America uses TikTok. So
Do you think
you do.
TikTok will ever be the same? Do you think it'll ever fully recover from this?
I think
Because
it,
I feel like it's just going to feel like a different platform now to people.
I think
like-
it's still the same.
Well, for 90
every-
days, it is literally the same, right? Because
Yeah.
they just have an extension on what they on figuring
I mean,
something
not
out.
platform wise. I mean, like content and attitude wise. You know what I mean? Like, I think that there will be many creators who will look at this situation and go, I'm not going to create on TikTok anymore. You know?
Oh, I don't think. I think that will. I think people will continue to do what they can do with TikTok until it's announced who is going to be the 50% partner in TikTok.
Right.
I think that's going to have a major effect on how and if people use the platforms. There's also new platforms being created kind of on the side, like new startups and things like that to create other applications that are similar. So I think it has to do with who buys it. Like if Meta buys TikTok and they're a 50% share owner in TikTok, I think most people will quit. If Elon Musk buys TikTok, I think 50% of people will quit. I think it really depends on who it is and whether or not they get access to the algorithm. I think it really just depends because like there was an effective drop in Meta stock just because people knew that the other social media companies are having a hand in making sure that TikTok gets banned. And so like people were actively attacking them for doing this. So I think it depends on who it is.
Yeah. That's fair. Well, let's switch from TikTok to another topic.
Yeah, sounds good.
Because I think for the next 90 days, it's a waiting game, and we'll see what happens after that. I'm sure we'll have another episode this season about TikTok.
Oh, yeah.
And all that's going on there. Let's talk about Luigi a bit. Let's talk about murdering healthcare CEOs and how not cool that is. My God. Who's doing that? Who is this Luigi fellow? Let's see. When was it? It was like December 7th or something like that. It was early December when it happened. You guys remember?
Yeah, it
what
feels
day?
like forever ago already.
Yeah, I know. It was like a month ago. But yeah, gunned down a CEO on the streets of New York.
And seemed like
And-
he was going to get away with it, at least at first. That was pretty
Mhm.
wild.
Yeah, how long was he loose for? Like a week, right?
I don't
Maybe
think
not
it was
quite
a week.
that
It was,
long.
it was a couple of days. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, went on a chase. They ended up finding him, turned over by some poor saps at McDonald's who thought they were going to get a payday and are not going to get a payday. Supposedly. I guess we'll see what. I bet we'll never hear about that again, honestly.
Here's
But-
here's one quick take about the his capture at least. If the police had a back door and could see what was happening at the self check or like the self order kiosk at McDonald's, right? Like
Mhm.
if they had that ability, they couldn't legally use it to arrest people. And so like I think it's more along those lines. Like they picked him up somehow using like the FBI's, network of compromised devices. And they can't say that's how they found him. And so they basically just say that a McDonald's employee recognized him.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Wow. So for
So,
like
something that I want to say is first off, I don't think it was him.
yeah, that's a possibility.
That's a big one where I don't think it's him. There is pretty substantial evidence that it could not have been him based on timelines.
Wait,
so
he has an
I think
alibi?
that's- No, so they said that he went so many miles in so many minutes on a bike. in New York City during like heavy traffic time.
Sure.
And there's competitive bikers that bike in New York City. They're saying like it would take me 3 times that long to do that ride. And so there's some other things too. Um, but first off, I don't think it's him. Secondly, if it was him, I think that his target was maybe mismanaged. Um, so who he got was the CEO um of United Health, the insurance company,
Right.
not United Healthcare Group, which owns the entirety of all of their assets and all of the different crazy things that they do.
Gotcha.
So, like United Healthcare Group owns the companies that also are the middle managers for the prices of medication and all that kinds of stuff, and like just the entire system that we've been rallying against. So, I think that was maybe weird.
I think maybe he
But-
just got who he could get.
Sure.
Yeah, that
Like
could
I
be
think
a
he just
thing.
wanted to send
Yeah.
a message, and it was
Yeah.
successful. You know.
Yeah. So
But-
whoever this random person was that did that, because I don't
Yeah.
think it was him.
I don't think it was Luigi
Um,
either, because he was actually over at my place that night. Like we were having a Birani bucket from the Hyderabad house here in Birmingham, Alabama. Like, I don't think it could be him, but I don't really know him that well. He was just passing by, and I invited him over. So maybe.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. But it did cause lots of ripples.
Mhm.
And it was one of those sparks, people were saying like I don't understand how anybody could condone the murder of somebody. And lots of people are saying, like on both sides. They're saying like, no, I don't understand how you could murder somebody at all for any reason. There's people saying that no, you shouldn't murder anybody at all for any reason, but I also understand why somebody would. And then there's the people going, yes, please eat the rich.
Sure.
And you're gonna fall somewhere on one of those 3 things, unless you just don't care. I guess there's a 4th one, right? The I don't care about it at all.
Well, it seems like there's a huge outpouring of people who are in the camp of, that the CEO deserved what was coming for him, right? Like that seems to be the vast opinion, which is odd. Like that is
Yeah.
not something I would say that's not typical, at least.
Yeah.
That somebody dies, gets assassinated, and everybody's on the side of his killer.
Yeah, and we had like a 2 or 3 day period where we got to see like real fear in the like behavior and eyes of the healthcare industry. Like there was a bill that was supposed to put a cutoff on the amount of anesthesia you can get during, or that they'll pay for during a surgery. And there was like a big, outlash about that just after the CEO was murdered. And they ended up, reversing that decision and saying, okay, yeah, we're not going to do that. And it was obviously because they were feeling scared and threatened and needed to have some kind of show of goodwill. And it's not even really goodwill, though. That's just how they should be doing their jobs. But
They did
I
a
don't know.
couple other things too.
Sure, yeah, that's just one thing.
Every CEO removed themselves from LinkedIn. Every single one like pretty much tried to erase their online presence with any information that they possibly could about themselves. It was pretty well known that people were struggling trying to get approvals for things, and then automatically the next day after
Yeah.
it happened, their things got approved. So I think they were like, we got to get the heat off of us. Let's do everything that we possibly can at the moment to make sure that we get the heat off of us, because the other thing to keep in mind is their stocks were tanking. And when that happens, like sometimes you make decisions you normally wouldn't, just to make sure that things stabilize, right? And so yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. And while this was going on, and a little bit before this started, people started seeing objects in the sky over New Jersey. Like around Thanksgiving is when that started. It was like I think November 18th, I want to say, is when the first ones were seen. And that's still like ongoing to this day. There's still just all these drones over New Jersey. The White House came out and said, "Hey, you're all just crazy. This has always been there. There's nothing to see here." But government officials within New Jersey are saying that's bullshit. Like, yeah, we live near the busiest airport in the world, and we're used to seeing, lots of airplanes coming through. But we know what fucking airplanes look like, and these aren't airplanes. And there's still no definitive anything about what those are. Some people have claimed responsibility. I read something about a company that was doing like mass drone testing around that area. Although what they posted didn't really line up with the sightings that people were posting pictures of. It's not like people are just saying, "Hey, I saw something." There's like pictures, there's videos. There's a whole new subreddit in J Drones, I think.
I read something interesting about the cause of it. That was the government or a private company was basically using them to do a test of what they would do if they found that there was like evidence of a nuclear weapon inside the U.S.
Yeah. And
that's the protocol that they would follow. And they wanted to go ahead and do a test so they could see how people reacted effectively. And for whatever reason, the first circumstance they wanted to try is if you don't tell people, if you just say everything's fine, I guess in that circumstance, if that really did happen, they pretty much would have to not tell people what was going on, or there would be mass panic, right? Everybody would try to leave. It'd be crazy.
Yeah. And then there was an alert in like the New Jersey area about a missing piece of uranium from an MRI machine that had gone missing. And so people were saying, "Oh, well, maybe they were just going around scanning for that." But
there's lots of things about that. Like they were also saying that there was an old piece of uranium from a Russian missile from 19 something something, and it got leaked out of Ukraine, and that's where it was. And
why would it be in New Jersey?
There's a lot of different theories and speculations, but nobody knows what, right? Some of the things that are being said is that they almost know definitively that these things were coming over 50 miles they were coming from over the ocean, at least 50 miles away from shore, and staying up in the air for longer than 5 hours after they reached the shore.
Right. And these are supposedly commercial like SUV size drones.
These are like SUV size drones. And as far as anybody who works in the commercial space is aware, we don't have batteries that powerful to keep them up in order to do that. So this is the conspiracy theory of either another country has figured out how to do this. The big speculator is China, but if it was China, why is it not on the West Coast and why is it on the East Coast? That seems like a silly argument to me. And then, like, I don't know what else it could be. It just technology wise, it just doesn't make any sense. So that makes me really do wonder whether or not it's ours. It's either got to be ours or it's got to be aliens, right? Like it's got to be one of the two. That's the only thing that makes sense. It's either ours or the aliens. So which one is it?
And okay, well, I do want to touch on the thing you just said about the batteries and the time in the air. At the very least, this is something I mentioned to you guys both. At the very, very least, this marks a massive jump in technology, like in our capabilities, which could be exciting if it's just us. I would love to have a flying vehicle. I would love to be able to travel from like Birmingham to my sister in Newfoundland over like a 7-hour flight. That would be dope. I want that future. Give me a Jetsons car.
Sure.
But it just seems really hard to believe that we have that capability at this point, and so I don't know. To me, it feels like if not alien technology, some kind of outside technology of some sort. I don't even know what.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's the theory that we have captured alien technology and replicate it too, right? I mean,
Sure. Yeah, and actually there was a both funny and interesting disclosure thing a couple days ago on News Nation News, where a new pilot, a helicopter pilot, came out and said, "Hey, I have been on a team that goes to crash retrieval sites and picks up these NHI, you know, whatevers, and drops them off at this place I call the ranch." That they never explained where that is. Of course, they didn't. And they showed this really funny video of what looked like an egg duct taped to a piece of string. I have watched that video over and over and over again. I don't actually think it's an egg attached to a string now. Like looking at it, and I don't know. I think it could potentially be something. What, I have no clue. But just it looks like an egg. It just looks like an egg. Which this pilot says was a flying drone of some sort with no visual means of propulsion. We never get to see it dry or fly or anything
Right.
like that. We just get to see it drop.
just see it
But
in egg mode.
it does line up with a lot of other sightings of orbs, particularly like the Tic Tac drones and things like that off the West Coast. And so it
Can't
could
wait
be
for that Tic Tac
something.
ban.
Yeah, I know, right? Tic Tac ban incoming. But the other half of the disclosure thing I found very interesting because it was this pilot talking about how he has worked alongside American trained, like military asset trained psionic operators who are able to call down these orbs on command and control them psionically, which is totally up my alley. I do enjoy that thought a lot. I could not help while watching the interview, though, feel like that News Nation was just really taking advantage of a mentally ill person or a mentally unstable person. And like it felt like someone who had like a psychedelic revelation that they were just handing a microphone to, which I'm into again. Like, and I don't even think that he is lying. Like, I honestly think that we probably do have psionic operators. We probably do have people trained in psionics.
Sure.
Like I think that we probably have more capabilities than we understand, and that's the message that he wanted to get out, was this idea that you at home right now are a very capable individual who can do these things that you aren't even aware of. And it's time for you to find out about this and train in it and learn how to like access this other group of senses that you have access to. I thought that was pretty cool, but the egg thing was pretty ridiculous at the time when it was happening, because I was just
You
like,
know,
that's an egg.
it makes me wonder if that's what the post that Trump was talking about when he said that Musk knows a lot about computers. Maybe you're saying that Musk used his mind abilities to rig the computers to be in his favor, using only his mind.
Let's switch topics again and just talk about that real quick. Unless you guys have something else about the
Well,
eggs.
honestly,
and drones that you were talking about.
you said it. We said a lot about stuff about like the drones. The guy who committed the terrorist attack in Las Vegas was on about the drones too.
Absolutely, yeah, that's true. He was a drone pilot for the military. It was on his resume. I saw his LinkedIn before it was taken down, and it was very clearly on there that he was a drone operator. I haven't read his manifesto, so I don't really know what it says. Have you actually looked at it, Jacob? Do you know what he talks about?
Well, I've only heard somebody else reading it. So no,
Okay.
I have not taken a look at it. But ultimately, I'm not even talking about his manifesto. It was some emails that he had sent, right? I mean, I think
I
that
haven't heard about this.
the emails may or may not be part of the manifesto, just in the sense that I think they were using a pretty loose definition of manifesto. It was just kind of like his last thoughts put together, and they called that a manifesto. But
Okay.
so he had some emails that would basically send in claiming to know about like anti-gravitational devices the government had. And he had information about that. And also information about war crimes that he had done in Afghanistan. And that he thought he was being followed because of that, and other things like along those lines. So I think that was the connection I saw there. He also had like political beliefs in there too. Like I heard some of the political beliefs described. They sounded like things that were largely correct observations about the state of the world, and then basically says like, well, and that's why we have to have Trump back. So he was very it was interesting that he chose as a Musk and Trump supporter to blow up his car Cybertruck in front of the Trump Hotel.
Yeah, very interesting symbolism he chose.
Yeah.
If he chose it at all.
Right, sure.
I completely believe that he was put in that car, shot in the head, and then blown up.
Yeah, that seems very likely.
Yeah. And what military base was he based out of or trained
Fort Bragg.
out of?
So
Fort Bragg,
yes. It's the one. Fort Bragg has some insane stuff that happens there.
But that is where we did an episode about it.
It's where a lot of the murders and unfortunately sexual assaults have happened in the
But
US.
it's also where MK Ultra was based out of, correct? It was.
I believe so.
It was it is actually the biggest military base I think in the world.
Yeah,
because we have the biggest military base in the world, of course. And I think it only has about like it has I think it has 55,000 soldiers, and I think the next largest one in the US is 40 or 45,000. So like it's not crazy big. It's not like it's 3 times as the size of a normal military base, but it is the biggest one. And it has it hosts like JSOC, like the special operators. And they have had a history of a lot of crazy things happening out of there. It includes like soldiers found beheaded, soldiers left dead in their bunk for days. Those are 2 definite things that occurred. A lot of
you just find them in ditches.
Yeah,
like just find them in ditches close to the base.
Right. And I mean,
sorry, go ahead.
For that to be going on, it has to be other soldiers and government secrets and stuff that's happening, or else
For sure.
They wouldn't be able to be killed on U.S. soil, I'm sure.
Yeah. And the terrorist attack that took place in New Orleans was also committed by somebody who was trained at Fort Bragg.
Right. Yes, that's true as well.
So it was like 2 terrorist attacks in 2 days by 2 people from the same place. Although, I mean, again, like you said, it is the biggest, military base.
Right.
So it could just be a coincidence,
Well, there's lots of crazy stuff that happens there, though. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
So it's not just if it was just this, it would probably be a coincidence. But there's so much other crap coming out of Fort Bragg, that so much news that could be tied back into programs, that might trigger a terrorist attack like that. I mean, to me, it seems like that the one in New Orleans was very classic FBI entrapment. I mean, the FBI for years, decades at this point, has been saying, like, finding vulnerable people online and basically convincing them to join an ISIS group that's entirely FBI agents, and then goading them into doing attacks so that they can foil those plots to get prestige and money and whatever, right? And also because probably it does do something positive in some ways, like, well, at least what they would consider positive. It advances their goals in some others more covert ways, like why they choose specific targets and what have you.
Same thing was with that group that threatened to kidnap the governor, that governor lady. Do you remember that? Back when she was threatened to be kidnapped? And it was a group of 20 dudes, and 17 of them were FBI agents and informants. Like 17 of them were FBI agents or informants. And then there was just 3 regular dudes who were like, yeah, everybody else is doing it. Like, so, yeah, just as an aside.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Okay.
So that one seems to fit a classic paradigm. The guy in Las Vegas was much more confusing.
Yeah, it was very strange.
It seemed like I probably believe something along the lines of what Jeff's saying, like that was a targeted killing of that guy
Yeah.
for whatever reason. And maybe there were people after him, but I don't think they were necessarily after him for the reasons he said.
Sure.
You know, he might have done other things that they'd rather cover up. Apparently, the war crimes that he had evidence about have already been recognized as war crimes by the UN. So there's
Just not the U.S.
yeah, so there's not a whole lot more he could do by putting evidence out there. So it is interesting. Like, I don't think he was killed to cover that up at the very least. I mean, maybe for UAPs, but most likely for a different reason, and we'll never know why.
Yeah.
You know, it's really oof. I'm trying really hard not to go on a hard rant. I'm gonna go on a soft one, okay? It's really hard to trust that 80% of the things that have been going on that have been just completely wild is our government. Like it's
You think it's hard to believe it's not them or it is them?
it is like I find it hard to believe that it's not them. Like the amount of evidence that points to all of these things, even up all back to the um uh first Trump assassination. Like that kid, his house was scrubbed. He didn't even have silverware. Like that's how hard they scrubbed this dude's house. Like, the second one I think was just a dude that went crazy. Um, he didn't even really get that close to him. Like, I think the second one was just a crazy dude. But ever since then, every single one of these that has happened has had some reason why the government would have done that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, and it's everything that we don't understand or don't have information on. Like even when we're talking about the UAPs, like in the drones and stuff on the East Coast, they're not saying don't worry about it. What they're like, or whatever or that it's not happening. What they're saying is, we know what's happening. We're just not going to tell you, but don't freak out about it because it's okay. So, and that's the official line. I don't.
Well, the official line is they don't know what's happening, right? But the implied
No, they can't. No, the SecDef came out and was like, "We know what these are. They're not from a foreign adversary."
They didn't say they know what's going on. They said that they don't believe it's from a foreign adversary.
yeah, they said some things that they were.
They're not from a foreign adversary, so therefore we don't need to worry about it.
Well,
Right.
that is, I mean, I'm not trying to,
You can devil's advocate me; it's fine.
yeah. Well, I think what I'm trying to say is that, I feel like people are reading between the lines that the government actually does know what's going on and isn't saying. But I don't think the government has ever said like, yes, we know what's happening and we're not going to tell you.
Right. They have not said that.
They certainly have
Well,
said,
Trump-
they haven't said they're
well,
not going to tell.
I know we have to take everything he says with a grain of salt, but Trump came out and said it. He said, "We know exactly where they're going. We know exactly what they are." And then when he was asked, "Can you give us any more information?" he goes, "No," because
Hell
because
yeah,
he
that's the
doesn't
move.
know anything. That's why. Although he probably does at this point. He did say that day 2 of his presidency, he would announce what the drones were. He did say that. I don't think that'll happen tomorrow.
Yeah,
But-
we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. Back to the Trump thing, which is all of life right now, I guess. Back to Trump. Last night, during one of his pre-inauguration parties, he was on stage talking, and he said about Elon Musk, whatever. He knows those computers better than anyone. All those computers, those vote counting computers, and we ended up winning Pennsylvania like in a landslide. So it was pretty good. So thank you, Ellen. He kind of just said on stage, "Hey, we fixed the election." Um,
He did it with his mind. It's all it's those skills that are being awoken in us. Like
right.
he
And
knows them.
I was reading some threads about that today and last night, and I came across smartelections.substack.com, which is this like organization that's trying to go through the data of the elections just to like see what's going on. And they found a very disturbing and interesting trend while looking at the election results, which were that an overwhelming like majority of people were voting against Kamala Harris, but still voting for other Democratic people on tickets. They talked about North Carolina in particular, about the attorney general race there, about how Trump won the majority of votes, even amongst those who were voting for Democratic people. And then Harris did not win a majority of votes, even among people that were voting Democrat. It just seems very unlikely to me, and this is a point that they're making as well. And it's not just North Carolina; they have stats on a dozen different states and how this is appearing in different ways, not just attorney general races, but for other situations as well, where for some reason people were voting Trump and then still voting Democrat on the rest of their ticket. Which simply does not make a whole lot of sense.
Well, a lot of
What
people
do you
did that
guys
in
think about that?
2016. Well,
What's
that
that?
happened a lot in 2016 too.
But I would like to see the comparison of the drop off, like they're talking about on this smart elections thing, just to see how it compares. And I would also like to see it compared to other elections that weren't about Trump, just to see like how they look. But I don't know, like a lot of things to me are just seeing very suspicious about the election and the results and just how overwhelmingly Trump won, especially in swing states. I mean, every single swing state went for him, right? Kind of insane. So
So
I don't know.
so let's assume, or let's make this statement first, okay? On one side of this, things were fixed, like you're saying, right? And the comments that we made about what Trump said about Musk is a thing, and there's that's one side of it, okay? And that's a possibility, a unique possibility. There's also a possibility that most people that did vote were fed up with Biden and Harris and didn't want
Well,
another Democratic term. There, like that is a thing where, like, just because you might vote for Democratic like locally because it affects your life more directly on a day-to-day basis, generally speaking, than what the presidency does. They could have also, the media did a really good job of overhyping her campaign and how popular her campaign actually was. They did that. I don't think there was lots of people that were saying like, oh, we're like, they were faking things, they were bussing people in and things like. I don't think that that's necessarily true, but I do think that her campaign just didn't go as well as what they thought. And there's like, if we go back and we think about 2016 and we think of what happened there, we do realize that there's a majority of the country who is willing to vote for Trump, who maybe never had voted before, but it meant a lot to them. And I also think that some minds were changed over the course of the 4 years that Biden was in office. And I say that because there's a lot of people who were saying, like, I hate Trump, like, he's the worst thing on the planet. He's the worst person ever. And so I'd never vote for him. And then they went and voted for Trump the second time around. And so I think you have to account for that. Like this is going to be a stupid example, but it's an example nonetheless. In 2016, Snoop came out and said, if you perform at one of Trump's things, like, I'm going to dog you and smash you for the rest of time because you did that.
Called him an
And
Uncle
then-
Tom, which is pretty
Right. And then
incendiary.
and then when this inauguration happened at the crypto event, which we'll talk about, the crypto event that Trump hosted, which was his inauguration party, Snoop was performing for him. So like yes, it's not the example of the normal average American, but it is an example of how that happens. Also, like I've said before, I would never vote for Trump because I don't think he's a good person, and I want my president to be a good person. But at the same time, the Democrats were destroying our country. And so you kind of have to, like, I don't think it's out. What I'm trying to say is I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for people who have said, I'm tired of this specific thing. We need a change. This is the change that's on the table.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people. I think the election was rigged in many ways that we've said before on here that weren't necessarily about like messing with vote counts. You know, whether it was rigged with vote counts or not is a separate question, right? But like, there's a lot of factors that effectively rig elections, like being able to spend an infinite amount of money on ads. I mean, I know Kamala's campaign spent more than Trump's did, right? So I mean, it obviously that doesn't necessarily have a huge factor.
They even went into debt
right
at the end of it.
Right. So I mean, but there's plenty of other ways. There's plenty of ways that elections are rigged, like completely. You know, beyond just this. Fundamentally, right? And I feel like it's not out of the question that they could have cheated as well. I mean, I wouldn't surprise me if that came out to be completely true. But I guess it's a question of like, how are elections really just that insecure that Elon Musk could put together hackers and hack them like multiple states? That seems unlikely.
I don't know. It doesn't seem that unlikely to me. It seems
I would say
totally possible that somebody could hack the elections in multiple states.
I would
know.
say that it's very obvious that we can say that in every single election, some level of interference happens. Every election, there's some level of interference. We don't know to what level it happened in this election. Did it happen in the last election too? Yes. Did it happen in the election before that? Yes. Like all the way back. Like there were accusations that the only reason why Kennedy got in office was because he made a deal with the mafia. Like there's lots of, like, this stuff goes way back, and it's almost evident that tampering happens. We just don't know how much. It's just something that I think we can say with all certainty that some level happened, just to kind of back up rap. Like, I think we're certain we can say that happened.
Yeah.
And then today, Elon Musk. How do you pronounce his name?
Elon. It's usually how people say it.
It's Elon. Elon Musk. That guy.
Wait. Do you think Elon Musk? Like, I'm just imagining in my mind a combination of Ellen DeGeneres and Elon Musk. Do you think that combination would be more or less of a sex offender than Elon Musk currently is?
Probably more. Yeah.
She was best friends with Diddy. So,
I don't even want to think about that. God,
Yeah.
Diddy happened too. Diddy happened too
Yeah,
during this time
Diddy.
period.
Diddy.
Oh my God, the Diddy shit. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Yeah. So I want to say real first before we get into Diddy shit
Yeah.
that Elon Musk sounds like a very targeted fragrance from a really big company.
Yeah, true.
Like today, get your hands on some Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Like
Well, anyway, I did want to say, and I know I mentioned this at the top of the show, but today on stage twice he gave the white power salute on stage, which is really scary. Like, that is so frightening. Why is that happening? Get me out of here. I don't want to be a part of this.
we
It is
know
really
the
scary.
we only know the context from the 8 seconds before the video.
Yeah, I'll
Of
watch
the
the
one
whole
that you
speech at some
shared.
point,
So we
and
need to watch the whole thing to see what the context is. But based on what we know, I mean, if that's what's going on, then it's kind of obvious.
well, it feels like that's what's going on
So
because that also seems to be what's going on with Meta and Zuckerberg as well. Is that they are both really kind of leaning into this like masculine white supremacist kind of territory.
I think,
Well, it seems
you
to
know,
be.
I'll come out. Go ahead.
I
Go
was
ahead,
gonna say, it
Rob.
seems to be what I was trying to say earlier. Like they are making a legitimate effort to erase, and I guess you could use trans people as like a stand-in for anybody who opposes their agenda from the internet, right? I mean, they're trying. It's the
Right.
TikTok
Yeah.
ban. It is Facebook and it's X all together deciding that they're going to be the police of what gets to be said online. And I mean, Reddit
Right.
fell a long, long time ago. I feel like, and
Well,
obviously
so
YouTube's owned by Google. And
so I wanna say, and I know I'm interrupting you,
yeah,
but
go for
I
it.
wanna say that I think this is the reaction, uh, the Nazi stuff aside, like actual saluting Nazis aside. Okay, I know Zuckerberg hasn't done that, um, and I would say that I think with Zuckerberg, Meta got put in a position, and we've kind of talked about this before when the Twitter files came, and we talked about the Twitter files and how the government was pressuring the social media companies to make sure that certain things weren't allowed to be said and other things were allowed to be said, and monitoring how they could control their content on their platform. And I think when Trump comes out and says like, no, that's not okay, it's easy for them to back him because they have like Meta came out and there's documents that they gave to um Congress showing how the government was pressuring them the entire time about how they need to censor things, or make sure that certain things weren't seen on the platform, from COVID to Hunter Biden's laptop to this, that, and the other. He said that their offices would get calls from people from different departments in the government telling them that they need to do this, that, or the other, like screaming at employees on the phone and like all this kinds of stuff. And so it doesn't surprise me that Zuckerberg is like, I'm fucking over that, and I don't want the government telling me what I can do in my company, because he owns it. It's not a publicly owned company. It's his. He owns the majority shares in the company. And so I can imagine that. And when people say like he's doing like this whole like masculine thing, the only thing that he's done was masculine was decide that he wanted to learn jujitsu, and that it allows him to get his like testosterone and things like that out of his system in a way that's healthy. Like, I don't think what people are saying, they're saying it in the context, especially of what he said. Like, he's come out publicly and said, like, this is why I do what I do. And people are taking that, and I think they're misrepresenting it when it comes to Zuckerberg. Do I think he's a good person? No, I don't think he's a good person. I think he's a shit person. But what I'm saying is, I think people are just like they do with everything else. They're twisting things to fit their narrative, and it's easy to say like, okay, just because he's against the government telling him what he can do with this platform, he's a Nazi. Like,
Yeah,
that
well, let me
just
just say
doesn't
real
track.
quick. Let me say real quick. I did not know he started jujitsu, and my comments about his masculinity stuff were more focused on like the DEI activity, the allowance of allowing people to call, trans and gay people mentally ill. Those are the kind of masculine things I'm talking about. I'm talking about more in the masculine,
But those
not
aren't
in the gender.
necessarily
Let me finish my
masculine.
statement.
Sure, sure.
Okay, I'm not talking about in the gendered way. I'm talking about in like the energetic feminine versus masculine energy way. Like in the like pushing energy and the dominant energy and the those kind of things is what I'm talking about. Because like there is feminine energy and masculine energy. I'm not talking about genders here. You know. I didn't know he started the jujitsu thing. I don't give a shit about that. I'm talking about the policies he's enacting that push a patriarchal, masculine agenda on the
Yeah,
world.
well, and to your point, he did come out and he did say that the corporate world had become maybe a little too feminine. He
Yeah.
did say that.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. Whether or not you agree with him,
I do not.
clear. But I think that's I think that's a place he got to by himself.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
That is
yeah,
like
sure.
in my view, that is very much in line with the white nationalist agenda, So that's just how I see it.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. Well, what else happened? Diddy. Fuck. Yeah, somebody else tell this one. I don't even want to explain it. It's so dark.
Did
I don't
that
even want
happen?
to talk about
That happened after we stopped.
Yeah, all
It
of this
was
happened since we stopped.
Diddy happened before we stopped, but we didn't talk about it on purpose. And so, but a lot more information has come out than what was originally posted.
Okay.
So I'm going to assume that most people know the basics.
Well, okay.
Which
Why
is
don't we at
essentially
least summarize the basics? Because I feel like that's probably
yeah.
all I know.
I'll summarize the basics.
Okay.
Essentially, 50 Cent came out and said Diddy's a fucking pedophile, and he throws parties where he has sex with other dudes and rapes them, and he essentially uses the power that he gains from having other people at that party do things that to essentially incriminate themselves so he has power over them later. He's got cameras in his place. They found 5 million gallons of baby oil, all that kinds of stuff. But essentially what was happening was he was throwing parties and then using video footage from these parties to assert power over people. And so everybody was afraid of Diddy. And so he was arrested. He's I don't know. I think I don't remember whether or not they actually gave him a bail.
No,
I think
he's still in jail right now.
I think he's
Yeah.
I think he's in jail. More and more information is coming out. There's been a lot more accusations about other people who were or were not at those parties. There's people who are saying that it was very much a select elite few. And there's very famous people who say that like they never even got invited. So I would assume that it's based very much so on mostly the music and acting communities, because those are the ones that pretty much the social elites in Hollywood, which is where most of the stuff went down. And so
I think it was just targeted at people that Diddy knew he could control.
Yeah.
People who
Yeah,
had the
could be.
flaws, who were willing to, do these degrading things to people and not know they are being recorded. But if somebody's willing to do these things, then you can control them because of it. And
Yeah.
you knew that.
Jennifer Lopez was his significant other during a period of this. And so every single connection that she has is speculative. So which is a lot of people. I don't think it was necessarily that widespread that it's everybody that she knew, but I definitely think that within the rap community particularly, there were a lot more than some think. The big one is the beef that, and the big part of the news is the beef that he has with 50 Cent. And if you know anything about 50 Cent, this dude's fucking hilarious, and he plays pranks on people and has no problem saying things out loud that probably shouldn't be said out loud. And the reason why he can do that is because he is held up by Eminem and by Dre, who is not part of that side of the crew, right? Is not held up in the same circles that would be ran over there. And so he's pretty much said his big thing was, Diddy walked up to him and said, "Hey, I want to take you shopping." In like the creepiest, weirdest way possible for no reason whatsoever.
That's quite a pickup line.
And 50 Cent is rich enough to buy whatever the fuck he wants to. So it's even creepier because it's like, I want to take you shopping. It wasn't a let's go look at like Lambos, right? Or watches. It was, I want to take you shopping. Like, I want to dress you. Like,
Have you all seen the
So-
video of Justin Bieber before and after meeting Diddy?
Mhm.
Have you seen it,
Mhm.
Jacob?
Yeah, I think I posted
That
it.
was wild, man. He had like 1,000-yard stare after one night with Diddy. It's pretty wild. I can't
Mhm.
imagine what
There-
took place.
There was a video of him hanging out where Diddy says like, I've got guardianship over Justin for the next 3 days. And he's like, Justin, what do you want to do tonight? And Justin was essentially like, let's go get bitches. Like, I think that was like close to his exact words, like, let's go get ladies or let's go get bitches or whatever the case was. And like, it's wild. You got to be fucked up to be that famous. And when you get that famous, if you weren't already fucked up, it's got to make you fucked up. I think there's probably some people who get through it and still can be normal, but those people are not popular people, because they don't do crazy shit all the time. So the people who are really popular, those are the people like I really think we need to watch out for in this case.
I mean, does it seem like we just get one of these every end of a presidential cycle then? Because I mean, Jeffrey Epstein was like at the end of Trump's first term.
True. Yeah.
So is there just some reason why maybe to distract like the crazy conspiracy theorists so they're not paying as much attention to the election?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe.
Let's assume yes. Like, once again, I can't not just assume at this point that it's the government doing this shit.
Well, sure, yeah.
Like,
It's very handy
like-
for the government to have blackmail material on a bunch of people.
which is wild because I like a good conspiracy, but I don't believe them all. But it's really easy to believe these.
Sure.
And that scares me because I'm like, have I flipped the switch where it all makes sense because I can make a connection for all of these things? Like, have I gone nuts? Have I gone Alex Jones at this point? Like, has that happened? Or am I still able to discern what is and what isn't? Right? Because lots of these can be rationalized in a way that makes sense to me. It's scary. I'm scared.
Well, I think there's a lot of conspiracy theories that just exist to make you question your perception of reality.
Sure, yeah.
And I think one strategy they really employ to, like, anything that actually gets out as a true conspiracy, they basically have to leak, 7 different versions of the facts, so that way people are going to be confused and not be able to discover exactly the truth.
That's what I think is going on with the drones, very specifically. I think that's going on with the drones because there's lots of different ideas and things that people saying that they are. And because I don't think all of them are drones. In the beginning, they were not calling them drones. People were not calling them drones.
And now it seems pretty obvious to me, at least from the videos I've seen and the discourse that I've heard, that there are drones in the air, and then there are orbs in the air. There seem to be 2 different objects. Sometimes there are videos of the 2 different things interacting with each other. And so I think that there is definitely some other component of this going on that is not the government. I think the drones are the government, though. I do think that.
Huh. Orbs, you
But
say.
once again, there's definitely conspiracy shit going on.
Right.
The question that everybody always comes back to is the government smart enough to do all of these conspiracies? And we feel like that's always the thing that comes back to. Is the government competent enough to do all this? But I feel like the government, in the ways that don't take care of public works, is very competent. And I think they're very competent to make sure that they don't take care of public works correctly. Like I don't think the government's as stupid as people think they are. I think it's very focused why we can't get anything done in the country. Like it's on purpose.
Well, it's extremely diffuse. If Elon Musk could literally just go, like, take out one person, and that would, shut down the government inefficiencies. Like, there's one person pulling all the strings he could just fire. But there is no even really group of people who is totally at the helm. A lot of things are happening that go against each other's interests, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And there's a lot of different organizations that are empowered to do covert operations with competing interests, and things necessarily won't add up, right? There is nobody trying who's planned both the Las Vegas terrorist attack and the Diddy stuff. There probably is, honestly, but now that I'm saying
Illuminati.
that, but
Yeah.
I think there's a portion of the Diddy stuff that was just Diddy. I think the timing of this kind of stuff for Diddy, I don't know. I don't know if that was on purpose. I don't know if the timing on that one's on purpose or not. It does, to your point, it is weird.
Well, let's shift to another conspiracy.
Okay.
And let's end on this conspiracy here.
Okay.
So I think it was Lou Elizondo came out and said, I think it was Lou Elizondo, it may have been Jeremy Corbell. One of them came out and said that in the coming weeks, there's going to be an announcement by the government that a UFO mothership is on its way to Earth, that we have seen it with the James Webb, and that it's going to be here in either 2027 or 2034 or 2036. There are a couple different dates I've heard, but 2027 is the most common one I've heard. And of course, in my weird little spiritual community, 2027 has been a big deal since like 2020. Like, people have been saying something's going to happen in 2027. But the conspiracy bit of this that I want to get into is that apparently the government has been reaching out to media people and presenting this as disinformation. And a lot of the like online disinformation, like YouTubers and things like that, or not disinformation, disclosure YouTubers and whatever, podcasters and so on and so forth, have been getting tipped about this UFO thing. And that is the thing that they're constantly saying, like, I know something that I can't tell you quite yet, but trust me, it's going to change the world. Like, this is what they've been talking about. And according to, again, I don't know remember if it was Lou Elizondo or Jeremy Corbell, one of those two came out and said, that's not going to be true. It's going to be false. Like, I know for whatever reason that this UFO isn't really coming to Earth. Whatever. Like, they're already here is his point. But I just want to say I'm really pissed off that they never reached out to us about this. Like, we have been making calls to the government for like 2 years now to reach out to us with information. Like, just pay us a little money and we'll say whatever the fuck you want. Why aren't we getting paid for this? Why didn't we know about this UFO?
Yeah,
It's
why?
because we said it's because we said that we'd be okay being the patsy. No one will
True.
believe us because we've said that we're open to being paid for it.
It's just
Are you
not
telling me
fair.
that I'm not supposed to say the quiet things out loud? Is that what you're saying?
It's not fair that we have
Yes.
to we have to make
Yes.
up our own disinformation. We don't have it fed to us by a handler.
Right.
That's very
It'd be
unfair.
so much easier if we had a handler. We're
Yeah.
out of control at this point. Please, FBI, get on it. Okay. And also, I do think it'll be very interesting if the government comes out and announces that a UFO is on its way to Earth. That'd be pretty wild.
Pretty wild, yeah.
Yeah.
No, what's wild is that there's so much shit going on that, and I specifically told Jeff this. So our original episode, we were mainly going to talk about the UFO stuff. And I told him there's so much shit going on. I don't have enough space in my brain to pay attention to UFOs right now. And I think lots of people feel that way. And to Rab's point, I think like no. I don't know if it's just I'm okay with it, or I think they're already here so it doesn't matter anymore, or if they just don't exist and the entire time we've just been getting fucked with, which I also wouldn't second guess.
Right.
Like, either way, I guess it's fine. Like, it's just okay. I've got so much other things to worry about.
Yeah.
And like, and most of it right now is just simply the government corruption that I've been bitching about for 2 years. Like, well, much longer than that, but publicly for 2 years. Like, I just don't have the energy for the UFOs.
Right.
Like,
Well, there are the people like you who are believers but don't have the energy to pay attention to it right now because of all the other shit that's going on. And there's the people like me that are into it and using it as an escape from reality. Like, you are simply like so hyper focused on it because it keeps me distracted from everything else. Although clearly it doesn't keep me distracted from everything else. It's not doing a very good job right now. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's probably good for today. You know, as far as talking points, we really wanted to like touch on different things that we'll be covering throughout this season today. And I think we did a pretty good job of that.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's worth going back and examining some of these topics in detail, and hopefully doing this episode helped us figure out which ones those will be.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us on the premiere of season 4 of Thoughts Expanded. Join our Discord, please. Join our Patreon, please. There will be Patreon exclusives again this year. I don't know exactly what they're going to look like. We might end up retooling them a little bit, but there will be something out there. And we would love to hear some discourse and conversation in the Discord. So
before we go, I did make a post on the Patreon today. As long as you are even a free subscriber, you have access to this.
yes.
There's a song.
Yeah. You'll want to
Please
hear
go
it.
please go enjoy it. It's a banger. It's a banger. So
and as soon as I get my hands on some duct tape, I'm planning on making a egg landing video of my own.
Okay.
So that'll come at some point, and that'll be a Patreon exclusive too. So
Jeff will also put up a video of him making on the art of making a duct tape wallet. I'm sure
I have
he
made
needs
many
a
a
new
duct
one.
tape wallet. I haven't
Yeah.
carried a wallet in over a decade.
Dang. What do you do
I
instead?
just put my cards and some cash in my pocket.
That makes sense, I suppose.
Yeah, I hate a wallet. I can't stand it.
Well, that is
Yeah.
a wild take, and I feel like we have to do an entire episode on wallets now.
On wallets, yeah. Okay.
We could do that.
All right.
We
Well,
could do
thank
that.
you everybody for joining us tonight, and we will catch you on the next one. Later.